right, welcome to this episode of our show, True Data Ops. I'm your host, Kent Graziano, the Data Warrior. Now, each episode, we try to bring you a podcast discussing the world of data ops and the people that are making data ops what it is today. So be sure to look up and subscribe to the DataOps.live YouTube channel, because that's where you're going to see the recordings for all of our past episodes. So just in case you missed any of the prior episodes, you can catch up there. Now, better yet, if you go and subscribe at truedataops.org, you can get proactive notifications of upcoming podcasts, and then you won't miss anything that's going on here the rest of the year. All right, well, today my guest is a Snowflake Data Superhero, a data modeling aficionado, and our new frictionless czar at DataOps.live, my buddy Keith Belanger. Welcome to the show, Keith.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Yeah, get a good laugh with that one. But yeah, happy to be here. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've obviously known each other for a while. Yeah, probably the Data Vault world, I think, is probably where we
Yeah.
first met up. So, why don't you tell folks a little bit about your background in data management and modeling, and your career path here so far?
Yeah. My journey in data started, oh God, almost 29 years ago. Not as long as yours, Ken, but I'm getting there as well. I started. I really knew nothing about data. Went to school originally for being an architectural engineer and got a passion for data. And they said, "Hey, there's this data warehousing stuff. You want to learn about it? Sure." I went to a Kimball class, I think it was in 1996, probably one of his first classes, and
Yeah.
fell in love. And ever since then, I've just kind of done. I think I've done just about every role you could do in data management. From back then, you had many companies where you were one, two-man shop, right? And so I had to do ETL development, data modeling. I was a BI, Cognos administrator for many years. So I really got to get my fingers into every aspect of data. Did have a passion for data modeling. That's how I learned. I had a mentor that really taught me, the whole conceptual, logical, physical model. Progressed into being just an overall senior data architect for a Fortune 100 insurance company to being the director of data architecture. I've done consulting, working with many organizations, verticals. So I've been both in the consulting side, in the enterprise side. I've, as you said about Data Vault, probably about I got interested in learning about Data Vault or early, or probably the same time around like I would say when our sources really started to increase. When we started getting a lot more with the three Bs, the volume, the velocity, and the whole big data stuff. I got into like there's got to be a better way. There's something I'm having pain with doing multiple sources and bringing them into my traditional star schema. Learned about Data Vault, progressed into implementing Data Vault. So I've been involved with a handful of Data Vault implementations. And in the last few years, I've actually kind of transitioned into the product side and working with product companies in terms of understanding, the those of us who've been in the trenches of data and how these solutions can be more beneficial and helpful to organizations. So um, it's been a long career, but it's flown by as well. And I really enjoy the data space. So yeah.
And obviously, you're a Snowflake Data Superhero. So, when did you get involved with Snowflake?
So the insurance company I was at, we were like, hey, we need our next, where are we going to? We're going to the cloud. We were highly an on-prem Teradata solution at the time. So started exploring solutions. Many organizations were looking more at the data lake, like how do we use public cloud like AWS and all. And then somebody had pointed me like, hey, you should check out Snowflake. And this was probably about 2018. So I started looking at it. Snowflake was just, I think, getting to be able to be used in enterprises, especially highly financial services type of enterprises, more their security. So we probably spent a good year truly kicking the tires of Snowflake and exploring it. And having used just about every other data platform there is to do data warehousing, I found it very interesting and really guess you could say fell in love with it because I found it was the first solution that was truly built for people who are doing data and analytics, data warehousing, um, rather than us trying to force our solutions into OLTP databases. Finally, there were solutions that were like, okay, now I don't feel like I have to fit my architecture to a data platform. I can do the data architecture I want to do because the data platform was built to do it. And so I've just been highly involved with Snowflakes, since 2019. I really got into it and been what 5 6 years, and been progressing and been involved with it. I would say 10 to 12 Snowflake implementations from large to small, multi-account, data sharing, you name it. Got to play with kind of a lot of things, and I really like the strategic aspect of things.
Mhm.
My days of being into the code, real granular level of are not there as much anymore, but understanding how to strategically use these solutions in today's practices to, find that business value and deliver the value, using these solutions.
Okay. Yeah. And so that has sort of, the evolution, I guess, of your career from, you know, doing everything, which is, yeah, the way I started too in the early 90s before I got into data warehousing. I hit data warehousing about the same as you. 1995, I got introduced to the Inman approach. Yeah, I didn't hear about Kimball for a couple more years. So we started at opposite ends, and we both ended up converging on Data Vault in the
Yeah,
end. Um, it's been, yeah, it's quite a journey to go through all of that, and then, yeah, after years, starting in the mid 90s with data warehousing, and then get to, like you said, for me it was 2015 finding out about Snowflake, and you 2018, and going, yeah, everything we've been trying to do for the last basically 2 decades, now there's a platform we can do it on, and it's a heck of a lot easier than it was with the other platforms we'd been using.
yeah,
um, and so now, though, you've recently you just joined DataOps.live, the company,
yeah,
and you have this new role, um, frictionless czar, right? And so there's a reason I'm wearing the Snowflake T-shirt, and why I'm asking you about your Snowflake Data Superhero status, and I know that's related to your new role here at DataOps.live. So why don't you tell folks about that, about your new role, and what's happening there.
yeah. So kind of the timing of when I started enjoying DataOps.live, Snowflake really strengthened their strategic partnership with DataOps.live. Right, it was huge investment, and like I said, Snowflake has recognized that there's friction involved when data organizations are trying to get up and running in Snowflake, right? Especially from in the data engineering world. And there basically was like, we need to reduce friction. Like we need to make it smoother for organizations to get their data pipelines and get moving inside, Snowflake. As you aware, I mean, you sign up for Snowflake, 2 seconds later, you have a URL, you're in database ready to go. But there's all kinds of peripheral things that have to be put around that before organizations can get underway. So the ultimate objective of what we're doing, the program is going to say, it's called frictionless. And I gave the title of frictionless czar just, for fun, but primarily is my primary focus has been how do we bring these, so kind of get you say the mandate, the strategic agreement, roadmap with Snowflake is we need to bring these data op capabilities into Snowflake, right? Not on the outside world, because we need to reduce friction. So everything about what we're trying to do is with this frictionless effort is how to bring these capabilities to empower these data engineers and data practitioners to get underway inside Snowflake sooner, faster. As these days with data, every minute is money. It's critical decisions, and if time and friction are in the way, that just slows organizations down and their ability to adopt, Snowflake. I can remember that my first Snowflake implementation got Snowflake 6 months before we were able to use it because of all the other things we had to do to secure it, to put in CI/CD, and all of the things we talk about in the 7 pillars of data ops. Those don't just magically happen. Well, then how do we embed those things inside Snowflake so organizations don't have to go and build it or look at third-party solutions to get underway?
Yeah, so I guess kind of that's the crux of the partnership here. And when you talk about friction and making it frictionless, was the challenge Snowflake customers had of really getting things into production, and I'll say achieving that. Well, we'll call it DevOps. What people were doing in the DevOps world
Right.
is, you know CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development, being agile, and it's one thing to do that in development, right? It's
Right.
another to actually be able to do that and roll it all the way into production. And that was, customers were being slowed down because there are certain things. Snowflake's an awesome data platform, and there's all sorts of things it does, but there were things that Snowflake didn't and still doesn't natively do that I guess, DataOps.live and the functionality therein uh, kind of fills that gap, right?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, they're saying DataOps Live, which is pretty much 100% focused on Snowflake customers, they're sitting there going, we want what you guys do inside Snowflake, right? You guys are the experts. And a lot of what we do is, as you said, Snowflake has a lot of the parts and pieces, right? But you have to stitch these parts and pieces together along with some other things from the, I'll say, the outside world. The third, if you were going to kind of do it on your own, and that just slows, Snowflake customers down. So yeah, how do we bring those and make that available to the Snowflake customers so that we don't have that friction anymore?
Yeah, because it's really about now, really the time to value, right? If somebody adopts Snowflake, and how long does it actually take to get the real value out of Snowflake? If you're not able to get things into production easily, it's taking a little longer. And so
Yeah,
this is an effort to try to reduce that, right?
absolutely. And what's tricky, and I felt this pain was that your business stakeholders, they don't want to hear, well, we have to do CI/CD and we have to do complete auditability and regulatory this and security that. They're like, no, I want my data solution. I want my data product. I need to make business decisions, and they don't want to hear, we'll be with you in 3 months, right? So it's a tough thing because these are requirements that are not instilled per the business requirements. They're instilled by a variety of reasons that you have to meet them, right? Especially if you're in a financial services or type, you get these regulatory requirements. We all know there's uh, CCPA and GDPR and all these other things that come into play that if you don't handle them, then there's consequences, right? And so it's just the nature of the beast. But how do we accelerate, the ability to implement those things so businesses can meet business value and get the real value of this investment?
Right. And as you said, the I guess the vision of DataOps.live was based on our 7 pillars of true data ops that we've been talking about for quite a few years. So I guess with this partnership with Snowflake, kind of sounds like Snowflake has now come to the realization that some of what we had in the 7 pillars are things their customers really need in order to be successful and deliver value.
Yeah, if you talk to Snowflake folks that are in the, dealing with customers every day, yeah, they're finding out that the adoption is slowed down because, well, we can't do this because we're looking for an ELT solution, or how are we going to get data in, or how are we going to, like you said, you know, deploy, dev, test, QA, prod. How are we going to test this stuff? How are we going to monitor it? There's a lots that go on, and as when Snowflake customers are sitting there and think, well, why aren't you using our product? Why is it going so slow? This is the common, you take one of the 7 pillars and something out of that's going to come out that this is slowing us down. Is it testing? Is it deploying? Is it being able to do data pipelines and transformations? And that's usually a common reason as to why organizations aren't there yet and truly meeting the business value.
Yeah, because one of the pillars is environment management. So that's you're having dev, QA, and production. And another one's the CI/CD, which is really you need that to move between those environments easily and hit one of the other pillars, which is being agile. Right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
It all kind of goes together.
when we go back to we were at the beginning, you were asking me about, early in my career, my journey. I mean, we were doing just changes once a month, and we were like, oh wow. And then I can remember when we went to weekly, and I'm like, okay, now if you're not making changes, near real time, and organizations that have many domains and they're decentralized, there's constant deployment, right? Constant change. And if you're not able to meet that rhythm and that velocity that is needed for your business, yeah, you're gonna struggle to really meet the expectations that are being given to you.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, you were in insurance and financial services, so highly regulated industries. And one of the other set of the pillars is security and governance. And so you're trying to do all of this, like you said, you got decentralized things going on, you got different domains, you got all these different environments, and you need to get it in production. And as you said, the business don't want to hear this, but you have to have this. You've got to have that governance
Yeah.
managed as well, so you don't get yourselves in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, it's a you know, I've been in those conversations when typically like fines and other things are brought up. And you don't want to be in those conversations if you're not meeting these expectations from some of these regulatory things, or even from your security organization internally. Their job is to make sure there's no data breaches and data is properly secured and managed. They don't care less if you're just trying to get a report or something out the door. So you got to balance that. What does my business need? What are my regulatory expectations? And what is my security organization putting on me? And I got to put all those things together. So,
Yeah, early on in the data ops journey, that was one of the presentations that Justin and Guy and I used to do was balancing agility and governance. That's what we were really at, because like you said, a lot of regulated industries, it's like you have to have the governance, but you still got to move fast because we got so much data that, like I said, one of the V's, velocity,
yeah,
was increasing along with volume. How do we manage all of that? And it's interesting. Back in I don't know, it's probably 2017 or 2018 probably, that when Justin and Guy and I were having these conversations, I was still at Snowflake, and their question to me is like, well, what's the biggest challenge for Snowflake customers? What are you hearing the most in the field? And it was absolutely hands down CI/CD. How do we do CI/CD in Snowflake? And of course, initially I was like, okay, what's CI/CD? Because I was a data guy, right? I was
yeah,
not. It had been years since I'd been a software guy, and I knew what about DevOps, but I had to learn what that was, and started hearing all the different approaches people were taking, and so it's like that's what I told the guys, and that fed into that being one of the lower numbered pillars on the seven pillars was CI/CD, and being able to manage that. And that was like one of the environment management we talked about, and doing CI/CD. Those became kind of like, I think, the starting point for the platform that is now DataOps.live. So from perspective of this partnership with Snowflake, and the frictionless project, can you tell us any about how that fits in?
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. So, when we talk about the frictionless initiative, that's kind of looking like an overall like 3-year partnership with like a roadmap between with Snowflake and DataOps. But Snowflake was very particular on two kind of, I guess you can say, two areas that they really wanted us to focus on first, right? CI/CD obviously being a big one, right? So we will be introducing two native Snowflake um, native apps that'll be available in the Snowflake marketplace. So everything we're doing now from a data ops perspective is going to be natively inside Snowflake. Even from a usage perspective, everybody's familiar with credits, right? Everything we do is with credits. Same thing applies here, right? No new terms, no new agreements with data ops. It really is, I'm going to start using these capabilities inside Snowflake. Um, you're going to get 500 credits a month that you can use. If you don't go over the 500 credits, you essentially can use these solutions at free. So really, to get started,
That
it's
that's off
free.
that's off the market. That's going to be off the marketplace.
Yeah, so you'll be able to go in and say, so we're going to be introducing two new native apps, dynamic CI/CD. So people, I think, familiar with like dynamic tables. So here we're going to be like dynamic CI/CD. Essentially, what this is going to do is if you already have an existing database, or even if you don't have an existing database inside Snowflake, this app is basically going to sit there and say, oh, this is my, if you're doing medallion, gold, silver, so you have your silver database, and you would say, you're going to pick that database, and basically we will build out the entire, production, test, dev, your Git operations,
The
all of
whole
the whole thing. So the entire CI/CD pipeline will be established and built out for you using, even if you've been using this database for 5 years, 3 years, whatever it might be, we will. in essence, reverse engineer it, build out your entire CI/CD pipeline with everything we talked about built in, right? The ability to test it, to be able to branch. And Snowflake has these like zero copy clone. I don't know how many people really leverage zero copy clone, but
Yeah, my
as
favorite
part of
feature.
the deployment process is we're going to leverage zero copy clone. So whether you're migrating up that stack and you're feature branching, so you don't have to be, as you said earlier, these are most people are data people, right? Not a DevOps. They build data products, data solutions. Well, how do we do this in a frictionless manner, right? So really being able to the area we're focused on is like your schema objects, um, being able to create them, alter them, and deploy them into Snowflake, following, like you said, the 7 pillars and best practices of data ops, again, so that you can deliver and not spend months building this all out. Now, the other benefit is once you're in, you have the full breadth of everything that's available in data ops. So then you can even expand beyond that, right? So that's one area where, so the dynamic, we're calling that dynamic delivery, right? So people will be able to leverage that. Again, get started, no additional cost, no reason to set up any terms or no different than if I want to go use Cortex or, Snow Park or a Snow Pipe. I can go in, leverage
So it's really
dynamic
going to be
delivery.
tightly integrated then into
Yes.
the Snowflake
Yeah.
ecosystem.
No.
If you don't have to sign any more contracts or anything, it's just
Yeah.
launch the app and put in the
Exactly.
information and you're in business.
Exactly. No having to go stand up infrastructure or anything like that. Everything that we're doing is leveraging, whether it's using Snowflake native apps, using Snowflake container service, some Snowpark container services, you know, all of those things, those capabilities that Snowflake brings, we're just leveraging all that, right? We're adding the other components and pieces that are needed to truly get a true CI/CD solution um, within Snowflake. So yeah, up and running in no time. The other area that Snowflake brought up was the high up number of processing and compute being done inside Snowflake that comes from many customers who are using DBT Core or DBT in general, right? But if you're using DBT Core, many could understand that it doesn't have all the enterprise capabilities, right? It's an open source, and there are even some organizations that say you can't use it because it's truly open source. It doesn't have support. It doesn't have. So we're introducing dynamic transformation, which will basically be able to use the ability to migrate your DBT core projects into Snowflake, into dynamic transformation, basically converting that and turning that into an enterprise ready DBT or transformation solution, right? So not only could what you could do in DBT Core or even in DBT Cloud, but again, having those other capabilities that DataOps brings to the table. So now, again, you're now bringing your data pipeline and your data transformation development right into Snowflake, right? So now, and not losing anything that you've done, literally move it into dynamic transformation and then moving forward and doing all. So if you were kind of like you're 3 or 4 people, each your own instance of DBT core, now you can be more collaborative, right? Now you have all of those CI/CD things we were talking about as well. Like how do you test, how do you deploy, how do you orchestrate, all of those things come directly in. And like we said, you're right inside Snowflake. Again, just the using credits. You get 500 credits a month. And so basically going and quickly establishing an enterprise grade, transformation solution right inside Snowflake. So those are really dynamic delivery, dynamic transformation are the two core, um, um, we're calling them a family of native apps, right? That are going to be
Okay.
available in Snowflake, more and more to come. And we're really now, kind of today is kicking off the ability to private preview. So, if organizations want a private preview and work with us and help us with the feedback, play with it, kind of mature this, to hopefully our goal is by Snowflake Summit, right? Is that this is going to be available for the GA for the masses. So that's where
Okay,
we are.
yeah, you got ahead of me on the questions there, mentioning Summit, but yeah, so you just mentioned a couple of the other pillars in there. Collaboration, that was one of our pillars, and then the automated testing and regression testing, another pillar. So these are going to be native apps available in the Snowflake marketplace, and when you're running those apps, I mean, you're doing it's taking advantage of all the Snowflake capabilities, but all of that management, all that is really the DataOps.live platform under the covers, right?
Correct. It is. I mean, we have these two, dynamic native apps, but I just like to say they're entry points, right? They're pointed entry points. Like, okay, we want to get our DBT core, enterprise ready. We want to do CI/CD. But then once you're in and you say you get that, then you can expand, right? You have the full breadth of the DataOps.live platform available to you. Again, no additional, anything that you need to establish. You might just start leveraging more credits as you start to expand and you start doing more. But all the orchestration capabilities that we have, and everything else within DataOps is now available to you as well.
Right. Yeah, because the data governance features with approvals and all of that, the workflow of those sorts of things. The what else was I thinking? Oh, the automated regression testing, all of that, like the automated tests and all that. That's all stored. Really, that's in DataOps.live is where that repository of like I'll call it metadata really
Yeah,
is that drives all of this. Everything that's going to happen inside of Snowflake and handles the orchestration and notifications and all of that's going to be really coming out of DataOps.live. You guys are just right now, as you said, putting together two native apps that will surface and I'll say a more a less technical, user friendly um, interface for
right.
people to really start taking advantage of these features that are in the DataOps.live platform.
Absolutely, right. It's kind of like, you know, get that point solution in play and then expand and grow from there. And the other part too is if you're doing data mesh or you're doing multi account and doing all this stuff, that many people are doing with Snowflake, that's fine. As we talk about governance, if I start, implementing test scenarios or other scenarios, then you can use those. So even if you're doing, domain specific work, but you want to share certain capabilities, all of that can be done right within the DataOps platform. So it's not like you have to implement all these different solutions in different areas. You can use this across your entire enterprise.
Yeah, so this is going to be kind of a one-stop shop really for all things data ops in general, lowercase data ops, right?
Right.
For managing your entire platform. And it's yeah, in data mesh, I can sure that's going to be that is one of the challenges of all the different domain teams kind of go in their own direction. You'll be able to kind of centralize and standardize on an approach with templates and predefined tests and things like that and be able to share them
Exactly.
with other folks on your team, again back to the collaboration pillar, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Wow, it's pretty exciting. I'm sure there's got to be a lot of people out there, especially the I know the DBT thing is massive because it's a large percentage of the Snowflake data pipelines that have been built over the last holy cow, well, it's I started in 20. It's been a decade now, really. It's just real 2025, and I joined Snowflake back in 2015 when I first found out about it, and so it's been over a decade now for some of the customers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data pipelines out there, and a lot of it was built with DBT, and so this will help, like you said,
Yeah.
remove the friction of managing all the DBT stuff by pulling it. You're going to pull it all into the DataOps Live platform, which had native capabilities for managing DBT from day one. I think that was like the first thing that they had when they released it.
Right.
Um, sure, there's going to be a lot of excitement on that, and the fact that they don't have to spend additional credits to do it, right? That they get
Yeah.
the 500 free credits a month, and even if they do go to more credits, it's not a different contract. They're just going to burn down their Snowflake credits that they already paid for.
Yeah. Exactly. And
Well, that's a
like
great
everything else.
collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. And many organizations might feel like w- we built this, like you said, 6, 7 years ago. For us to unwind it, build something new, it's hard to justify that. But if you sit there and say, well, I can do this using this native app and it's pretty much frictionless and it's going to give me this, modern enterprise grade capabilities. um, let's give it a shot, right? Let's try it out. As we say, you don't really have anything to lose because you're just leveraging, the freemium aspect of it, even if you were to say, let's just take this one project and let's just POC it and see how it works, and then you can grow into the solution. So
Yeah, that's great. So it's not only is it frictionless from a user perspective and a data engineering perspective, it's also frictionless from a management perspective because you're not going to have to run a contract all the way up the food chain just to even do a POC. It's literally launch the app out of the marketplace and start
yeah,
using it.
you can use this no different, like I said, than if you want to go and leverage Snowpipe, right? It's I don't have to go to my procurement team and sit there and say, or go through legal and all those other friction, aspects of going with third party as part of this agreement, in this partnership with Snowflake is how do we make this frictionless? Which is, yeah, we want people to be able to go into Snowflake and say, I want to use dynamic delivery, go in, pick it, click, 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 right? And boom, you're underway. And that's the whole objective. Everything we talk about every day is when we're doing things, we're like, well, how did that make it frictionless? What can we do to make it frictionless, right? How do we make it better? And we know many of these people are data people. They might not be Git experts or, you know, um, experts in just like CI/CD aspects. They just want to deploy their stuff, and just it happens, right?
Yeah,
And if one of those types of people that really want to get into the bowels of it and do things, great. If you don't, great, right? It really is up to you. We just want people to be able to bring, deliver business value to their customers, which is ultimately why we're all here, right? If our businesses didn't have a need for data and analytics, none of us would have jobs. So ultimately, our goal is to deliver business value. So,
yeah. So you said private preview is starting today.
well,
People
like
can
this
start
is the
talking
first,
about, can
like
sign
on this,
up.
yeah. I mean, right now, this is the first that anybody is hearing it. So anybody who's listening to right now is the first because
Ooh,
over the
first
next,
mover.
yeah, but we're in that stage right now. Anybody who wants to participate in the private preview, either you message me. I think we're showing there've been some QR codes, but we're going to be posting on our website how you can register and sign up for the private preview. You can reach out to us and we'll get in touch with you and making sure that you want to participate, you can have time to participate, because it's going to definitely be a give and take back and forth to make sure we really mature the solution to meeting the business needs. But yeah, we're excited to get
Awesome.
underway, and we will be having. We're still working on, but we're going to be establishing some hands-on labs. So we'll be doing some workshops. If people like will say, I don't know if I want
I
to
was
be
just going to
ready.
ask you about that. You got
Yeah,
any webinars, workshops, things coming up?
yeah, all those things are we're kind of testing the hands-on lab stuff right now. We do have, again, back to frictionless. We're trying to do as much as we can so that people can do a lot of this stuff on their own. So even if you want to understand what the product is doing, we kind of like self-guided demos, right? So those links will be available as well. So you can sit there and say, oh, I want to look at dynamic delivery better. I'm going to go through this demo again, trying to make that process as frictionless as possible. So, reach out to us, and we'll start feeding more and more. This is going to be structured in our website. A lot of that will start hopefully go today into the upcoming days. But yeah, we're ready to start. Getting people on board for our private preview.
Yeah, great. So yeah, if folks can't find it on the website, then reach out to Keith via LinkedIn. There's a QR code up there right now. Um, and of course, you're going to be at Summit, so folks can certainly, I assume, got a booth. You're going to have a booth at Summit talking about this. Do you know yet if anybody's got presentations on this at Summit?
Well, we will have a presentation at Summit. We do have a theater session that will be coming out at Summit. We are hopefully trying to work with a few other things with Snowflake that we might be able to do at Summit. So a lot of that is still a work in progress. But yeah, we'll definitely have a booth. We do have at least one theater event where we were going to demonstrate some of this stuff. But obviously our booth will as well. And we do have content and stuff we can share with people. Just reach out, and we'll be happy to get in touch with you and help you get going.
And then, of course, you're also you help run the Boston Snowflake user group. So that's another place that people might catch up with you in the next couple of months, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do help with two other data superheroes, but we do have a monthly Boston
It's
Snowflake user
monthly.
group.
Yeah.
Yep. And I know in a couple weeks, if it's not already out, I think I saw yesterday, it might be there on the Snowflake user group. You go to the Snowflake user groups where we'll be having this month will actually be a social. So the details, I think it's on the 23rd. We'll be meeting on April 23rd, having a social event, very informal. So even if I'll be there. So if you want to chit chat and find out more detail there, I'll be there. But yeah, if you're in the Boston area, definitely look us up, and we're always happy to have more members of the Snowflake user group.
Awesome. Well, we completely ran over, as usually happens when you and I get talking.
Yeah,
So, thank you for being here today, Keith. This is a really exciting. Thanks for all the information about this whole frictionless project. I think this it's a real exciting time for Snowflake customers and for DataOps customers both for this partnership to come to fruition here this way.
yeah.
So,
Um,
yeah.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, we're very excited, and I look forward to where we go, and um, talking more and more with people who get their hands on it. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. And thanks to everyone who's online for joining us today, or if you're watching the replay, thanks for watching. You can join me again in 2 weeks. My guest is going to be another Snowflake Data Superhero. Speaker, author, and senior data architect is my buddy from Ireland, Dan Gallivan. Um, as always, be sure to like the replays from today's show and repost them and tell your friends about the True Data Ops podcast. And don't forget, you can go to truedataops.org and subscribe so you don't miss any of the future episodes. So until next time, this is Kent Graziano, the Data Warrior, signing off for now.